You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com, thechrisvossshow.com. Hey, coming here with another great podcast. We certainly appreciate you guys coming by the podcast today. And as always, we have some of the most amazing guests, great authors, brilliant minds, and all the wonderful people that you may want to see on the interwebs of the sky, all that stuff that's playing around, running around, and all that good stuff. Today we have some amazing folks that are on the show, and we're going to be talking about a new book that came out March 14th, 2023, Reverberation, Do Everything Better with Music. And Keith Blanchard is the author on the show, is the author of the book. Peter Gabriel wrote the foreword for the book. You may know Peter Gabriel as the massive musical artist. He was also part of Genesis, which is a favorite band of mine as well. Wrote some incredible hits and power stuff that if you haven't heard Peter Gabriel's music, you've been living on a rock for like the longest time. I mean, it still reverberates today. From when I grew up with him and him in Genesis back in the day. In fact, I think I've got some friends that, the original Genesis in the 70s, they've still got their rock concert tickets to it. So we're going to be talking about that. We actually have his daughter on the show. She's going to be with us as well. Anna Gabriel. She's a co-founder of the launching that they did of this business company. We're going to find out more about it, called Reverberation, and what they do on the interwebs, and talking about what they do with music. We also have Michael Herman on the show with us as well. Michael Herman is the Reverberation co-founder and CEO. He launched Wicked Cow, Reverberation's managing partner, in 1995 as a TV production company, producing its inaugural project, Reverse Angle, and sports entertainment show. He hosted airing on Fox Sports. Along with that, we have Anna Gabriel on the show. She's, along with being the daughter of Peter Gabriel, I wonder how she worked that out. She was born in London, England, and she moved to the U.S. in 1992 to launch her career as a photographer and video director. Her fine art photography has been exhibited in galleries in Sundance, Boston, New York, and London. Welcome to the show, both Anna and Michael. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having us.
Peachy. Terrific.
Peachy. So there you go. So this is kind of an interesting combo. I've got you two here who've helped co-found this Reverberation, if I understand it correctly. Peter Gabriel's involved in it, and I believe so is Keith Blanchard. Do I have that all correct?
You do.
There you go. There you go. And we're missing the other two, but you guys are going to make a great stand-in for them as well. We hope you'll carry the load.
We'll do our best. No promises.
There you go. So let's do this. Let's get the .coms. Let's get some places that we can plug where you want people to go check you guys out on the interwebs.
Website is reverberation.co. And we are at reverberation.co on Instagram, and we're at Reverberation on Facebook.
There you go. Anna, any plugs you want to do on your websites?
My personal work, I have another book, a photography book out called ID, and that website is idphotographs.com.
There you go. So let's talk a little bit about this. What launched this project? Because it seems like, okay, so there's a book, there's the website. Give us a grand overview of what's going on here and why you're doing it.
Anna, do you want me to go?
Sure.
Okay. So Anna and I have been friendly. We're friendly from like the late part of the 2000s until 2020, when we sort of had a little bit of a renaissance. And we've been Facebook friends for all that time, and I think following each other a little bit in our work. But in 2020, my company had recently launched sort of an accessible brain brand that was for sort of like, the idiots like me, that we can understand the science and pull usefulness and understanding out of like this influx of brain science that was sort of infiltrating the zeitgeist. In the middle of last decade, you heard a lot of like how to sleep better, how to eat better. What is brain health all of a sudden? We had never heard that term. So we wanted to create a very fun and funny and visual and interactive brand around your brain. And we did some really fun projects around that. The last project we did was this really fun, interactive, live event here in New York with Seth Rogen and Martha Stewart and Jane Krakowski. It was an interactive sort of musical and panel discussion around the impact of comedy and food on your brain, which was a lot of fun. And I've been an admirer, not only of sort of an acquaintance of Anna's, but an admirer of her work. Anna's a super talented photographer and director. And I am a lifelong super fan of Peter, not just as a musician, but as an activist and an artist, and someone who really has put his world, his money, his time, his art into trying to make the world a better place. And he's done some really powerful things. And I've been just a super admirer for a long time. And knowing that we wanted to really move into like the power of our brains, in 2020, right before the pandemic, Anna and I kind of got together and we figured that, taking sort of this vast brainness was a lot to chew on. But, I think we both knew that it was, even anecdotally, that we all have songs that we were listening to, whether it was to go to sleep or to calm us down, or to, when we're playing basketball in the driveway to pump us up as I am now. There was this sort of invisible, magical thing out in the universe that was affecting, everything we did. And a little bit about Peter is Peter's been sort of an anomaly in the music world. And there are others, but not many, who really have devoted his personal interest and time to science and neuroscience and really getting a really robust understanding of how it all works. So Anna and Peter and my company decided to create this music, tech, and media studio around the impact of using our everyday music to do everything better. So whether that was on the anecdotal side, where we're helping to increase creativity and productivity, or it was on the other side of understanding how sound can help, retard the growth of Alzheimer's plaque growth, or helping our basic mental health in the world in which we live now. And we decided to go out and create a voice that was fun and funny and colorful and accessible, and to bring a whole bunch of people together. And that's exactly what we're doing. And we started with our book, and we brought Keith on to help write this book, which he did a brilliant job of. And if you don't know Keith, among other things, used to be the editor-in-chief of the digital version of Rolling Stone and also the World Science Festival. So he's this great, funny dude who just gets it and was able to translate for us a lot of the science that we were culling together. And our whole ecosystem for the studio starts with the book.
There you go. Anna, do you want to throw your thoughts in on that?
Yeah, well, just to add that we wanted to make the book as usable as possible. So something that, you can carry around that doesn't sit on a bookshelf and you can kind of flip through. So we also made it very visual and colorful. So each chapter is color coded, but it's, broken up into subjects like focus, sleep, become, connect, create. And then you can kind of flip to that chapter and find out, how music can help you within those daily activities that you might have. And it's also, made in FlexiBind, so you could put it in your pocket and carry it around a certain size. We sort of, put all these factors in to kind of make it as friendly as possible for the non-scientists and easily pick up and read.
There you go. Music has such an integral part of our lives. I don't think I have to tell anybody that, but if I do, I just did. I grew up in, I was just looking up Shock the Monkey here on the Wikipedia because I was a teenager when Shock the Monkey came out. I know that's hard to believe. because I look so young and Brad Pittish, but I actually was. 1982.
Very handsome. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
The flattery will get you everywhere. 1982. I remember when that song came on the charts. It exploded. I graduated high school in '86, so I would have been what, junior high,
14,
sophomore, about 14. So, but I remember how explosive it was. It was all over the radio. It was everywhere. It was such a huge hit. I believe MTV was coming up at that point. Man, it's all fading. But I remember the video on MTV was just like, just off the charts every 5 minutes.
I remember the video scared me quite a bit.
Did it really? That's right. It had the monkey in it. It was kind of a little bit weird, but I mean, you'd watch it because you're just like, and that was kind of the whole age of, kind of interesting sort of videos, and everyone was experimenting and trying to make art. I think, Miami. What was it? The Miami Vice and stuff was going on. It was a real Miami Vice feel, if I recall correctly. But, music is one of those things that shaped us. In fact, we were talking before the show about how I just went and bought Metallica's new album, 72 Seasons. I went to this really interesting premiere they did of it. And maybe this plays into your book, but they did something that I don't think any artist has ever done yet. I could be wrong, but they released a movie. And it's a movie of all the songs in the album, where they introduced the album to us, not only in an audio format, but they released it in a movie format or video format or visual format as well. And so they literally sat down with us and they sold tickets to a one night only exclusive thing in movie theaters where you could go, and they introduced the album to you. And I have been in love with the last two albums of Metallica. And they haven't been that good. And I think a lot of people who are Metallica fans kind of agree. I mean, they're okay. But being able to sit down with the band, kind of almost on a one-on-one level, and have them introduce the music to me and what their thoughts of each song were. And then some of them were ones of them playing, and some of them were like weird sort of almost Peter Gabriel's, sort of visual art things that you kind of, it gives you a different experience. And I'm in love with the whole album. And I don't know if I just got hoodwinked to love the album because of this whole experience they put me through, or if I just really like the music. And I'm pretty sure I really like the music. But it's interesting to me how, so many songs, we go back and love those songs that were kind of at that moment that got imprinted us at such a young age. And I think what you guys are trying to do is tie together the brain waves and the connectivity and frequency ranges as well, and why we fall in love with this music. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the point that you made about how you hear music is an interesting thing too, because that changes your experience, whether it's in a car, on headphones, at a live show. I think that can definitely affect your emotional experience of different sounds and music. Mm-hmm. But I think, in general, it's music, we're all made of sort of cells that vibrate, and music is a vibration, and it can connect to all of us in a, very physical sense, and more even on the spiritual sense too, is my belief. But it's a very powerful tool that, if we can harness and we learn to use, it could help us dramatically with different elements of our life.
There you go. Do you want to chime in or add anything onto that, Michael?
No, I mean, I think Anna nailed it, frankly. I think that one of the things that I've been so excited about learning through this process is exactly what Anna just said, which is, we are made up of water, and water vibrates. And as someone who was not a trained musician, to have to think about the impact of sound and music on our bodies has spawned a lot of ideas. Again, not only we're developing ideas that have true medicinal, medical, science-driven application. So, understanding the biology and the physiology of music's impact when we hear sound and music has allowed us to try to approach systemic problems in a different way and creating those musical interventions. And that's probably, for me, like the most fascinating, is drilling the music down to such a scientific way in ways that it never would have considered as a layperson, leading up to the beginnings of creating the studio.
There you go. And it's interesting to me how music can imprint memories into your brain. I've had, and you guys talk about this in the book, and you guys talk about it on the website. I've had, I remember, I'll give you an example. When I was a teenager, one of my girlfriends, she said to me, "You're my candle in the wind." And I was like, okay, well, great. That's awesome. I didn't get the reference because I wasn't listening to the radio, I guess, at the time. And she said, no, the song REO Speedwagon, Candle in the Wind. She goes, that's a song that bonds me to you and reminds me of you. And I was like, well, I better go find out what the song is about. And so that kind of became our song, our romantic song. And, a lot of the references of the couple of years we were girlfriend and boyfriend resonated. And anytime I hear the song, I'm going to remember that relationship. You guys talk about different frequencies. So there's, delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma. I've always worked with equalizers and different sound recordings where, there's different hertz and how some of those things appeal to us and certain sounds appeal to us. In the book, you guys, along with, I guess, Keith, work with different neuroscientists, David Byrne. Am I pronouncing that right? David Byrne of Talking Heads, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, Bradford Marsalis, Hans Zimmer, Mick Fleetwood, Sheila E. And then you work with neuroscientists as well. I might need some neuroscientific work. Little brain. You work with them to
we know
train.
A person.
I need to listen to more Shock the Monkey. I think I need the shock, the monkey part. Some electronic shock therapy. And you guys found some different things. You mentioned the Alzheimer earlier, where there might be some things that we can use to repair people's brains there.
Yeah, we just a little context. What we've really been, our mission as a studio is, we see the next sector of wellness being driven by music, and at this moment in time, there hasn't to this point been sort of an arbiter the way there are in other frontiers of science. Like, you think about how we learned about science growing up, right? So like, you think about this great frontier like deep space, and you have people like Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson guiding you as through information that's very fun and accessible. You want to learn about it. The same with the deep sea and Jacques Cousteau, who's an awesome personality. But with all this brain science coming at us, there is not, to our understanding, certainly our fandom, there hasn't been like this arbiter that has sat in the middle and being able to not only deliver the science to us, but in a way that we can absorb it, use it, understand it. So our book just launched, which is the first project in the studio, but we've been at it for 3 years, bringing some of the more important voices to develop our initiatives together. And those include partnerships with some of the most important major research universities and neuroscientists in the world, and then with artists and music companies, and then obviously with media companies and creators. And we've triangulated all of that. And Keith's voice, as mentioned earlier, like in the book, is really fun and funny and easy. And he distills the voice and the science in a way that makes it very easy to understand. So with regard to some of the stuff we're exploring on the Alzheimer's sense, it's such a horrible affliction. And at MIT, for instance, there is a lab run by Dr. Liwei Tsai, and she and her team have used a very specific frequency of 40 hertz and have found the ability to stop the growth of Alzheimer's plaque in mice, which is phenomenal. Wow. But on the other side, so we're leaning into creating musical interventions like that are serious, that are effective and scientific. On the other side of those projects that we want, like, what's the impact of music when you go to work, right? How do leaders emerge in the workplace through music? How do you focus and build creative teams in the workplace through music? One of the things that I think I found out that I love is supposedly one of the most effective ways to concentrate in the workplace, especially with like computer work, is to have video game soundtracks on in the background, which is kind of awesome. Right? You think about it, they're all very stylized, and they are born to elicit a very specific outcome. And science has found that is one of the very specific ways to help increase focus in the workplace.
There you go. And Anna, I'm going to throw you an additional to that, and feel free to add on what you want. But I noticed that on the website, you've got relax, focus, love, thrive, connect, escape, feel, become, kind of some different examples and some stats on how people can use music to connect and what they do. Any thoughts you want to throw into that?
Yeah, well, one thing, we've mentioned a few times, but the interest both Michael and when we first heard it was that this thing called the ISO principle, which when you're listening, excuse me, when you're listening to, or when you're feeling, let's say, rageful and angry, instead of listening to calming music right away, you would listen to music that was at your level. So what you think is
Metallica.
Music, Metallica, whatever that may be for you. And then slowly bring it down to something at a lower level. And that's something that, for example, is a small piece of information that I never knew, because I would have automatically gone to classical music or something that you think calms you down. But if you know how to slowly bring your brain down to the right state, it's a better way to use it. So it's things like that are, sort of small techniques of that you might not know of how to actually listen to it.
And one of the interesting things they talk about in the book is love and relationships, how we can be drawn to people who there's a thing here on chapter 3 on love. A couple only has a 2% chance of success if their musical tastes are in opposition. Boy, I've had those girlfriends and dates. It's unless they like the kind of music you like and you like theirs.
Quick ones. Yeah.
There's going to be a fight over the radio. There's going to be a fight in the car over, I had one girlfriend, and I'm not knocking her in any way, shape, or form, but she liked her music and I like Metallica, and I'm driving down the road angry. But it's interesting how this is connected, and some of the data and research you guys have done. We talked a little bit in the green room before the show about how maybe there are certain frequencies that we're attuned to that make us choose the type of genre maybe that we're attuned to. Like I look at people who listen to country music and I just don't get it, but maybe they do because of their brainwaves.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with, where you've grown up and what you've been introduced to as a child. I mean, I think there are very different sounds and environments in Asia, for example, or even Africa to America, Europe. There's this very, you grow up with different sounds in the environment around you. So I think what makes you feel comfortable and what you hear can affect your music tastes and how you, will be drawn to certain sounds and music.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to throw something in here, Michael?
Nope. I think Anna said it perfectly.
Okay. It's for me, we mentioned Metallica and love and stuff. Like in high school, I was in that love phase, and I had my girlfriend in high school, and we loved a lot of Journey. And Journey's like a lot of love songs. It's all about love, and there's not a lot of anger, depression, misery, headbanging going on at Journey over there. At least not that I've checked lately. But when I was young, my first real band I fell in love with was Rush, and their song Subdivision. I was, I think, 12 or 11 years old. I started going to school, and the fights at school and the strangeness of peer pressure and all that. And the song spoke to me in a way, not only with the musically, but with the lyrics, where it was, told me about, what the hell is, this whole subdivisions and the dreams of, and all this sort of issues. And then later in life, I discovered Metallica, and I have depression in my past. I think family, I think we might have some genetic. I don't know if it's genetic, but there's some definitely in my family. And James Hetfield, the lead singer of Metallica, talks about how, his trauma as a child. He lost his, I believe, his mother early on. So there was some mother abandonment there, not by choice, and issues, I think, with his father and different things like that. But for me, I'll listen to Metallica and people will be like, holy shit, man, you're really getting into that. That's some real headbanging stuff. But you'll tell people, hey, man, that's cathartic. And I used to have girlfriends that would watch Lifetime TV. And I come home and they'd be with their mom sitting in front of 2 feet in front of Lifetime TV crying. And I'm like, oh God. And I just turn around and leave. And I couldn't understand what the thing was, but what I finally got to understand was there's a cathartic process of emotions and feelings, maybe what they're thinking that they're going through. And it helps kind of cleanse you. Like I can listen to Metallica, and when I get done, anger, misery, When I get done, I'm like, cool, man, the world's great again. It's almost a healing
Chris,
journey.
it's funny. Total, no pun intended. Yeah, totally. It's funny. A buddy of mine who's a musicphile said something to me a few years ago that actually reminds me a lot of you too, as we're just sort of listening to your nostalgia, where he said to me, like, a lot of reason why he listens to music is that he's very analytical when it comes to music, and he listens to the music strictly for the musical sake. I listen to a lot of music, certainly for the music, but like, it's so visceral with me with certain, especially teenage emotions, and our musical lives are really shaped at, I think, 13, 14, and 15, when our brains are really processing music at its highest count, and we're associating music with those sort of adolescent memories. And I have those too, where listening to music, it's powerful. Like when you don't hear a smell, you don't capture a smell for a long time, and then all of a sudden you smell something, and it takes you back instantly. Well, the musical ties to your brain and the associations of those memories are such a strong draw for me personally, and obviously not alone here. And it really almost hijacks your brain. And music can both help and frankly can manipulate at the same time. Think about all the times that we're manipulated, whether it's through a soundtrack or it's through a shopping experience, right? All things that can make you linger, make you excited to shop more, spend more, be more interactive. And those are the tricks of the trade. And we avail some of those secrets in the book, and it's amazing. Like, it almost feels like, certainly to me along this path, it just feels like it's this invisible magic trick that has all kinds of superpowers, and our job here is to decipher and put them to good use.
There you go. I love the concept of this and the science about this. I'm an atheist that said we crawled up from the primordial soup and learned to walk on land. And sometimes I wonder if that's why we have this connection to the ocean. Like, I have a weird connection to the ocean. And we go and we stand there kind of in awe of it. But it might be, everyone's got a different opinion. They're entitled to it. But sometimes it might be our mother calling us home. But one thing you've kind of talked about is the reverberation, and there's something about listening to waves, and that it's very calming to me. I used to go down to the ocean in California whenever the world was, you're just like, oh my God, everything's just burning down in my life. And I would go down there, and it would not only calm me and still me and center me, but it would also kind of remind me with the largeness of it that all my stupid little problems didn't amount to a hill of beans across the eons of time that those waves have been crashing on that shore. Everything was a little speck of sand, and I would be healed. I would come back from it and go, whatever. But like you said, we're water beings because we're made up a lot of water. At least most of us are. I think mostly I'm vodka. But that resonance in our soul, in our bodies. There's certain notes that can hit you that just can change your mood or emotions one way or another. Any thoughts?
Well, I think that I feel exactly the same with water, but I also believe that because we were in our mother's wombs in fluid, and we had that motion of water, but also the sound, like the muffled sound of being underwater in the womb. And the other thing, in the womb, we also one of the first sounds we hear is the heartbeat, our mother's heartbeat. And so it's like this very strong rhythmic sense, which I think also connects us to the rhythm of life, as it were. And we all sort of have an innate sense of rhythm and different aspects of life that's all based around a certain beat, a certain rhythm.
My mom must have had a Lars Metallica kick drum heart.
Yeah.
But what if instead you found out that it was more like Barry Manilow or Enya? Like, would it change the way that you look at Metallica?
No, I love both those bands too. I'm like a connoisseur of everything from the 80s and 70s, 80s, a little bit in the 90s. I've come to embrace, but there's a lot of melodic. My mom sang to me. I think a lot of mothers sing to their children. There's kind of I think there's science behind it, but I think moms do it because they intuitively know. Yeah,
there's a lot of controversy to like play music in the womb, but there was a recent study actually we just got sent that they found out that babies who'd who in the last few weeks of before they were born, so not early on, but the last few weeks that they had music, either their mother singing or music played to the belly, actually developed better with speech when they were learning to read and write and talk. So it was there's a connection to music and the development in the brain with speech development too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you guys go ahead, Michael?
No, Chris, I was just going to say, we talked about a little bit in the green room just about how rhythm is important and how we start in a certain way. And Peter himself started out as a drummer, and a lot of what we're looking to explore is the power of rhythm and constancy, and how it affects and how we can measure math and time. And you think about things that are measured by rhythm, so many important things in our life. And those are things that we're trying to get down to the bottom to and allow ourselves to have a better understanding of how rhythm can really help us breathe. It can help us communicate, and it can help us coalesce together, build community. Because once you're at a concert, one of the great things that we learned is that your brainwaves sync up with your neighbors at a concert, and that's incredible to me. And that's often just based on the rhythm of the beat.
Maybe that's what we feel when we're at concerts. Then there's kind of a unifying mind meld.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Body meld, emotion meld. We all feel the song. We all feel, if it's a painful song about sadness or misery or loss, we all kind of feel that. Everyone will cry. And what's also interesting to me is, well, there's one thing I want to get out of the way first. So I don't know if you guys researched in the book or researched it yet, but someone should solve this riddle for me. There are times in my life where I won't have heard the song, and maybe I heard it, I don't know, in music or movie, and maybe that triggered it. But sometimes I'll get a track in my head. I think usually I pick it up, I'll hear it in a movie or somewhere I'll hear the cut, and it can just be like a lick, the riff, of the dun dun dun, whatever it is, maybe the chorus or the beginning, and it sticks in your head. And I don't know, maybe I'm insane because I have a lot of ADHD or had, but that thing will bug me and haunt me. I'll wake up doing the tune in my head, and you're like, yeah. For the love of God, are you serious? And then eventually I'll figure out that it's going on, and I'll be like, can you leave me alone? Play another song or something, And it becomes, maybe it's my ADHD, but I'll eventually just have to listen to the song and then play it 5 times and sing to it just to kind of get it to release.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, Anna, I looked up Peter's top songs here because I want to make sure there was anything I could pull from it. And I graduated high school in 1986. I was a big watcher of MTV, and I just noticed that one of his top songs is, of course, the song Sledgehammer. Guess what the hell's been playing in my head for the last 10 minutes just by seeing the word sledgehammer and having that song play? It is now in that place in my head right now, and probably will be for the next 24 hours. And also I'm reliving the video as well, because that was every other video on MTV in 1986 was Sledgehammer. So
I have a little cameo in that video.
I don't know if I like your.
I was just about to share, Anna. That's right.
Yeah.
I think it's 3 minutes, 42 seconds in. It's this freeze frame. There's little
it's
Anna.
Fortunately, a very quick.
Anna dancing around.
And it's hypnotic. Sledgehammer. You can't. I'm going to ruin it for everyone. I'm putting everybody's head now. We all have to share my pain.
But Chris, so what you're experiencing is called an earworm, right? Oh. So we go into the book a little about one way to alleviate that earworm is to chew gum, because gum can help disrupt the neural pathways, which will help you get the song out of your head. Although you don't want to get Sledgehammer out of your head, you want to get a different song out of your head, right?
Yeah, usually. I have several voices in my head from all the personalities, so we're always trying to just keep the kill one on its own. We don't want to listen to that voice. At least that's what my judge and parole agent said anymore. We can't. Is
there a song though that that if you hear it, it's going to be sticky for days? Oh yeah. Because I have a couple in my head that I know that if I hear it, that's the end. There's no amount of Big League Chew in my mouth that would stop that song from repeating and repeating.
Yeah, I've scheduled a few lobotomies with some songs, but Sledgehammer is one of those songs. Shock the Monkey's another song.
Zombie by the Cranberries is a song, and Ants Marching by Dave Matthews. I challenge anyone to go out and listen to those and not have it, stick in your mind this time tomorrow.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting how we have kind of an assembly of those. Maybe that's the way we process our emotions, or we're using music to process our emotions. Because sometimes I find, like, why is this song stuck in my head? And there's something eating me. There's sometimes where I've had something that's eating me. There's some sort of subconscious idea process about something I wanted to write down, or something that I'm trying to square in my head or get a resolution to. And somehow that music is guiding me, or sometimes it's the lyrics that are hitting me. Any thoughts on that?
I think it can be a combination. Some people are more affected by lyrics than they are by the sounds and tones. But I think there's specific, elements to the music, as well as the lyrics are the obvious one where people connect to what somebody's saying. But sound-wise, I think there are certain tones, chords, progressions that you can use that will elicit different emotions in people. So I think the combination is what gets to people. But I think on the other side, there's like music can be used in terms of sticking something in the positive side of actually remembering things too. Like if you're at school and, if you're learning your ABCs, you learn it with a song. And you remember it because of the way it's sung. And it's attached to music. For me personally, my dad used to help us learn our multiplication tables using some song or another he made up. But it always helped. And I'm a believer that it should be used in education for kids all over the place in whatever subject matter.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things you talk about in your book is all these different emotions and features and how music works. We mentioned Enya and like New Age music and different things. Piano music is like I don't know if dopamine is the right word. It's almost like a turkey eating turkey with the what's it called?
Tryptophan.
Yeah. If I hear really slow, beautiful piano music, it's almost hypnotic, and it will just make my brain. It's like hitting my brain with a nice brick or something, and I just go, ooh. You guys talk about relaxing there. One thing you talk about too is like sex and music and playlists for the people like, and how that can have an effect on our love and lovemaking.
Anna, you want to field that one?
Well, I think, there's the obvious connecting with people through music, having the same taste as we mentioned earlier is a big part of it. And also obviously rhythmic factors of the tracks. But I think, I think it's more a connection than anything between people, and how it can build connection. Music can build connections.
Yeah. But then, I think sort of like songs to make love to, like, also have this sort of like circular repetitive melody. So it's intoxicating and it's getting into your brain, and that it is that, like, you're in that moment. It is on repeat, right? So going back to that rhythm again, like how intrinsic rhythm is to all of us, it goes over and over again. But Chris, I think we there's a study that we've been privy to that I think just blows us away. Just going back to relaxation, which is chapter 1 in our book. University of Pennsylvania did a study within the past few years about. I think that they had culled together about 157 people who were pre-surgery, and they gave, I think, about half of them some medicinal sedative, an IV sedative as a nerve block, and the other half, they through noise canceling headphones, they played what is supposed to be the world's most relaxing song, which is a song called Weightless by a band called Marconi Union. And the results were phenomenal. The levels of anxiety in these pre-surgical patients was almost indistinguishable between the music intervention and listening to Weightless for 8 minutes as it was to have an IV sedative. And like that, to me, it is so demonstrative of like power of music, because if music can be a non-invasive medical wellness tool, especially when you're talking about having to take some heavy drugs, as opposed to a song having theoretically the same kind of impact, then to me it's a no-brainer on the direction as what we should be learning and what we should be chasing.
There you go. Yeah, the sex thing I was referring to was one of the areas of the book. They talked about how to build a sexy time playlist, and if you want to build closer bonds with someone, you should choose music that reverberates with you, which makes sense because I'm not a big fan of certain types of music. I think some people, they like their genres, and it would be very hard for me to fall in love with somebody if I was constantly have to listen to a genre of music I don't like. And if you notice, like even our dating profiles, I think Tinder and different things, when you match with people for dating, they'll talk about what sort of music are you into, what do you like, and we'll advertise, like even on Facebook, we'll advertise what our favorite bands are and different things. So that makes a difference. So this would be really great too, because I can see what you guys are talking about now with like Alzheimer's and dementias, and I know dementias. I'm clearly in the early stages. Dementia and how music and the frequencies can be used to stimulate the brain to keep it from dying. Is that your hope that maybe you can translate some of that and the science of it into therapies like you mentioned earlier?
We've done our best to surround ourselves with the world's most pioneering scientists who could speak to the science a lot better than we can. Frankly, our job was to vet the musical interventions that we're building through these media projects with these scientists. I think it would be irresponsible, certainly for me, to begin to explain to you how the frequency hits the cochlea and then translates into the brain through electricity. But that's what I can tell you on its most basic level is what is happening. But we do go into some of the more specific science throughout each chapter in the book, and that will help guide the reader to better understand with each sort of intersection that we address in the book, whether it's focus or relaxation or becoming and thriving, that you can put the science to work for very usable tools.
There you go. So what do you guys hope to do in the future? Is there a roadmap yet, or are you playing it out to see how it goes? What's the future of what you guys are going to do with the company?
Well, we have a lot of projects coming up where we sort of have our eggs in many baskets, as it were. But we, we'll be releasing sort of, media projects such as, podcast, TV show, all sorts of things, as well as hopefully a traveling museum, like live events, different, there are many different places we can go. I mean, music is obviously, it's so, it could be involved in anything really. So we can go anywhere with it. And we have many different partners we're working with on different projects. So they will start to sort of, the book mainly is our DNA for most of these. So, we wanted to start with the book because of that. And then things will, gradually progress from there into these different projects.
And I think it maybe explains why, I hate to toot my own horn being a Gen Xer, but that's what we do. But it's interesting how the music from my era of time, and I'm not going to throw you guys under the bus for age-wise and assume that you're in that same era. But it seems like the 80s, the 70s had some of the most greatest music ever. And I know some people will argue with me about, but what's interesting is that music, like Peter Gabriel's music, a lot of his list, In Your Eyes. I mean, this stuff still resonates today. And every now and then I'll be like, oh man, that was such a great song. I remember that song on the radio. I mean, the radio. Those of you who are millennials and Gen Zs, you'll have to Google what a radio is. But I remember those experiences. And, back in my day, you'd sit by the radio and wait for that song. You call the DJ, hey, can you play this song? And then you hope that he would, and then
plus pray and record to see if you can record it.
Try and catch it. I remember, like I say, I grew up watching MTV, and Peter Gabriel was a real big impact on their broadcasting. But it's interesting how so much of that music is like still alive today. It resonates. And maybe it's because of those frequencies like you guys are talking about, and that's the real power of them. Even today's musicians and artists sample a lot of that music, that rap people put different sampling in their music, and a lot of people will talk about the influence of what they're currently doing as an artist to that music, and a lot of them are going back and using it. So it's interesting to me how that keeps coming back.
Yeah, Anna and I, we together did the interviews of the musical artists in the books that range from David Byrne to Questlove to Mick Fleetwood and Hans Zimmer and Sheila E. And we talked a lot about this. But one of the people we interviewed in the book was Kool from Kool and the Gang. And I remember his telling us that, he asked his mom, what makes a hit song? And she said, it's always a simple melody. Right. So to your point about all the sampling and the repetitiveness and the resonance of all that 80s music that was very easy to absorb, it was easy to capture, it was easy to memorize, and it was easy to associate, I think, with sort of everyday memories because of just the nature of how you absorb music, whether it was through the radio, you're always in the car, and you were just waiting and hoping that the DJ would play something that like resonated. And I think those associations were deeply ingrained through very simple melodies. And I think that's probably a reason. If you look back at some of the songs that you feel are sort of coming back at you, there's probably a very simple melody associated.
Any thoughts on that, Anna?
Well, David Byrne said something interesting that I thought was that people of the younger generation of today actually don't have as much bias on styles and types of music. They're much more willing to listen to music of a different generation. It's not like their parents' music, and it's not got such a cliche as it did when probably all of us were younger. And so it's interesting. And we were kind of thinking, is this because of the way, music is available now? Are we listening to just singles and not albums? Is it much more mixed playlists, and the streaming services? But it's just, I thought it was an interesting point that he made.
Yeah, and I think movies and TV play a big part. Like I was a big Styx Grand Illusion fan when it came out. I'm that old. Wait, I didn't think I came out in
Grand Illusion.
But Grand Illusion, what an album! And then it had that huge comeback when South Park did a redo of "Come Sail Away" on the show. A parody. They did it with Rush and I think Tom Sawyer, and they've done a lot of artists. But there's different movies too that have done that as well. They do that replay, and suddenly it becomes. There was the thing recently where a couple years ago on TikTok where the one gentleman, I think it was Dreams, or it was one of the Fleetwood Mac songs, and he played it while drinking Ocean Spray, and suddenly Ocean Spray started selling a million things, and it became like this huge thing. And Mick Fleetwood's like, hey man, we need to get on this TikTok thing. Well, we just sold 40 million records. And
Exactly.
you look at stuff like Pink Floyd's boy, I'm getting too old. I need to some more Shock the Monkey help. Pink Floyd's the wall, and then Dark Side of the Moon. I mean, that thing was on like the thing forever. What's interesting too to me, and I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit here, but there's a point to it. There's certain songs and certain music that you listen to that the words don't matter. Like Steely Dan, like all their stuff. I was a fan of Steely Dan for like 30 years. And one day I sat down and I was like, I should figure out what the lyrics are to all these songs that I'm always going to court. Like, what the hell is this? And I started reading, the origins of the songs, and, being the drug fiends they were and half insane. We've had some of the producers of their song, and they're great guys. But, I started reading some of the music and I'm like, this is completely not what I imagined the music was I was singing to. But, and everyone has their own interpretation. So it's kind of interesting that way. Maybe we can solve Alzheimer's by, I don't know, Metallica. I don't know. You just need more head banging. So maybe less head banging. I don't know. Somewhere. Anything we haven't touched on that you guys want to tease out about what you guys are doing and how you're doing it now that we've established the 80s are the greatest musical era ever?
Look, one of the things, I love what we're doing because like music is so accessible. It's democratized. It's a tool that I think we're just learning how to hone. Mm-hmm. Chris, you talked about early on, there are sciences in the world that are buttoned up tight, right? And science is science. And I think the science around music and the neuroscience of music is evolving. And, our job as we see it is to make sure that we're ahead of that science and we have the right scientific data, the right scientists around us to help us make sure that whatever we can imagine to create, where music is so bespoke and we all absorb it different ways, that we're trying to create opportunities to help people, including ourselves, learn how to make use of the music in a different way than they had before, and realizing the tools that they have at their fingertips.
Yeah, maybe there's some science to it. Anna, any parting thoughts?
Well, just that I think, music is, cliched the universal language, but it's true. I mean, and I believe that, it predates language as well, itself and speech. But, it's just such a powerful, the fact that, we talked about this earlier, but the fact that music and smell can skip our frontal cortex and go right to the limbic system, and where we feel and we skip all reasoning, is just, it goes straight to the core, as it were. So it is a extremely powerful tool for all of us.
There you go. You know what was funny? That was the other thing I was trying to remember. I game with my nephew, and he's, he was like 12 or 14 at the time, and I would game with him across our game Destiny and Call of Duty, and he started singing. Like, he would just be, we'd be playing, and he started singing the Queen song, Another One Bites the Dust. There's a couple others he songs. I think Bohemian Rhapsody and a few other ones. And I said to him, I about fell off my chair. I go, do you know what the song is? He goes, I don't know. No one hit the button. Just, he's singing the little tune. And he does that with a lot of classic songs from the 80s. And I said, and I kind of fell off a chair. I go, do you know where that song, how old that song is? And he goes, I don't know. It's a song I just kind of like. And I go, I was your age in junior high when hit the Queen song, Another One Bites the Dust. I had the single. I think I might still have the 45 single.
Uncle Chris, you're old.
Yeah, it reminds me of that a lot. But then I'm like, it was so amazing that here he is, and probably 40 years later, the same song is resonating with him that it did to me at my age, and it kind of gives you goosebumps. You're kind of like, wow.
Yep.
But once again, that reiterates why the 70s and 80s was the greatest musical generation ever, and everything after that has been downhill. So there you go. Grunge sucks. Anyway, I'm just kidding. I love Nirvana. I love Nirvana. That's about it. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for coming on the show. Give us your .com so people can find you on the interwebs, please.
Yeah, Reverberation.co.
Yeah.
There you go. And your guys' personal works, please.
Mine is Anna Marie Gabriel Photography, I think. So on Instagram and Facebook.
And mine is Utter Nonsense, UDDER, Utter Nonsense.
There you go. And send a message to your father. Thank you for breaking my brain in my 80s and stuff with Sledgehammer being on repeat.
He's only getting started.
And Shock the Monkey. That's still a great song. The punch of it is just Shock the Monkey. Great. Now that's going to be in my dreams tonight. All right. Well, thank you very much for everyone for coming on the show. Thanks to our audience for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, all those places on the internet, LinkedIn, YouTube. Yeah, I think we covered all. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. And we'll see you guys next time. And that should have